What's up, YouTube? This is going to be another video where I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. I wanted to look at different builds of certain gods and kind of think of ways that maybe you can mix it up and do some interesting things. Because if you look at a god like Geb, he is a guardian support, and you might do something normal. Here, let me get rid of this build and show you kind of what normal builds are right now. Um, or at least in season 2, you always had the same kind of build. So you would start off with Watcher's Gift to give you a little bit of extra gold early game, and then you could go into something like this. You can go into Boots, maybe Shoes of Focus, and then you might go into something like Sovereignty, and then you might go Heartward Amulet. That's kind of a standard start for a lot of gods in season 2, and it's season 3 now, so this build isn't really as important. But after that, you might go into other things like mid guardian male if you're playing against physical basic attack hunters. If you maybe a team has 2 hunters on there. In season 3, Height of the Urchin is kind of a go-to for almost every guardian right now. Back in like season 1, early season 2, Magi's Blessing was pretty big. You would see a lot of mystical male as well. And of course, season 2 and even now into season 3, most gods kind of focus more on the physical protection rather than the magical protection, because for a couple of reasons. Most team comps are 3 physical, 2 magical, and that's general. Sometimes it's the other way around, but that means if there's 3 physical, then you would obviously want to build more physical protections. Um, but at the same time, if you look at how some physical gods, um, if you look at their damage compared to, say, a mage like Scylla or Janus, or any high damaging mage, which is really most mages in general, then you can see that they put out more damage than physical gods. So I think it's okay, now that we're kind of getting into season 3, to start looking at magical damage more seriously. And so I wanted to kind of look at these builds, um, and just look at maybe different ways to build these kind of characters. So I want to start with Geb because I had an interesting build that I wanted to talk about with him. So I start with Watcher's Gift because Geb is almost purely defensive. He in the laning phase, he really only has one real ability that can help out, and that's his 2, which is a knock-up. Other than that, he can't really do much with the wave. He kind of stands back and then throws his shield on the ADC when he needs to. So that, he's good at standing around, and Watcher's Gift, the passive is if you're in an assist range of a minion or a jungle camp monster, when another ally deals the killing blow, then you get +4 bonus gold, and you also get +10 health and +5 mana. So it's a good defensive item. So I think it's important to start with that. The big thing that people are doing right now in season 3 is starting with Traveler's Shoes, which I love for several reasons. One is that it's actually 100 gold less than Focus Boots, or CDR Boots. So that means that you can get this item online earlier, and it will also give you 14 extra movement speed and 25 HP 5 when you're out of combat. And because Geb is such a defensive god who can kind of stand back, that means that he's going to be out of combat more often than other gods, especially gods outside of his role. So other guardians will also kind of be out of combat for a lot of the time in a match. So that's why I think Traveler Shoes is great on him. Gets him, the movement speed, and also gives him some magical power. So I think it's a great item. The next item I think is interesting because there are a lot of things that people are starting to do. The most popular build right now is to go from Boots into something like Breastplate of Valor. You can also go into like Sovereignty or Heartward Amulet depending on what you're facing. But I think that there's another way to do it. I think there's another interesting choice, and this is kind of just going off of the idea that Geb is defensive, so he's going to be out of combat more. So I'm looking at Oni Hunter's Garb. Now this is not an item that hasn't been seen very much. It's new. SMITE came out with that item when season 3 was released, and with a lot of the new items, people are kind of uncertain about it. You're seeing a lot of bad talk about some of the new items, especially like Mantle of Discord. A lot of people aren't finding that item to be worth it because it has, I mean, look at the physical protection and the magical protection is great. The passive, however, is, while it sounds amazing, it doesn't really seem to have that much of an effect on the team fights. Whereas if you look at an item like Spear Robe, sure, the magical and physical protections aren't as big, but the damage mitigation you get from it is huge, and you can almost see that that has more worth than the passive of Mantle of Discord, which is basically when you take damage below 30% health, you unleash a shockwave that stuns enemies in a range of 20 units for 1 second, and you gain CC immunity. So that sounds great. It's like a good kind of safety net for you, but really it doesn't seem to have much effect in the team fights. At least a lot of people are noticing this. So a lot of the new items again are seeing a lot of hate. A lot of people are uncertain about playing them. I think because they're new, they're not really sure. They're not seeing the net gain from these new items. But I think that they do have a lot of great uses. Oni Hunter's Garb to me could actually be a great item on Geb, and that's why I'm going to put in this build. So let's look at the stats. 60 magical protection, that's a lot, it's great. If you're in lane against a physical hunter, obviously it's not going to help you too much, but if you're a good support, and especially Geb has an ability that allows him to be very mobile, so it's very easy to rotate with Geb, which means that you should be rotating to mid lane early game with Geb as much as you can. And in fact, you're kind of supposed to leave your hunter in the dual lane and let them kind of figure out what they're doing while you help out the mid lane. So that magical protection could actually be very, very important on him. And the passive is great. So every 10 seconds you are out of combat, you gain 15 magical protection, which is a max of 3 stacks. And then once you take magical damage, 1 stack is removed. So because Geb kind of stands back and is going to be out of combat for more time than most gods. In fact, I think this item is perfect for Geb because of how much time he's out of combat compared to other gods. So I'm going to put it in the build. I think that's why I'm kind of looking at new items. I'm kind of trying to change up the builds and make it so it's not just, Traveler Shoes and then into Hide of the Urchin and then into Breastplate. I want to mix it up. That being said, you do need some physical protections on Geb. So I think the next best item would actually be Breastplate of Valor, because the cooldown is great. You can get the Geb shield off as much as you need to. It's very helpful. Now, the issue with this build so far is that you won't be using Hide of the Urchin because that's an item that you want to get off early, so you can get those stacks as early as possible. So I'm actually not going to be putting Hide of the Urchin in this build. I will be putting Oni Hunter's Breastplate of Valor. I think those are great items. I think Bulwark of Hope is still strong after the nerfs. The shield is great. You get a little bit less health than you did before this latest patch came out. But I still think it's very strong, and it's relatively cheap for what it does. So I think that's a great next item. And if you look at a build, you kind of want to see the progression of the gold costs. You want it to kind of make sense gold-wise. You don't want to have to start off with a high-cost item, because then you're going to be waiting a lot and you're just delaying your build. So I think seeing a general increase in what your build is, I think is really good. And then looking to our next items, I love Midgardian Mail. I think it's very underrated. A lot of people don't see the worth because they think you should only use it if you're playing against a team with like 2 basic attackers, 2 hunters, or a basic attack jungler. I don't agree. I think it's great, especially if you're going to blink in and ult with Geb. You're going to be taking a lot of damage after you do that, so Midgardian Mail will slow everyone down after you stun them. I think it's a good item to have, so I'm going to put that in the next one, and that gives you the physical protections that you need. And then the last item, I'm just going to go into Spirit Robe, because again, I think it's, you can compare this item to Mantle of Discord because they do similar things with their protections. But I think Spirit Robe, the damage mitigation is better in general. So that's pretty much it for this build. Again, it's a little bit different. You're starting off with Traveler Shoes and Oni Hunter's Garb, which may not be conventional, but I think because of this passive, it could do very well on Geb, and I've been trying it out, and it seems to work. So I definitely, if you're interested in playing Geb, maybe try this build out. I'm definitely liking it. As far as relics, the main relic that you're gonna need is Blink because of his ultimate. I think Curse and Shell are two aura items that go well on almost any support, especially like a Kepri who is very aura focused. I think those two items are great. Heavenly is also good, but usually your hunter is going to buy Heavenly, or you might have a mage, or the solo laner might buy Heavenly. So usually as a support you don't need to buy it, but there may be situations where you do. And that's pretty much it. That's just my unconventional get build. So I figured I'd share that with you. So feel free to put down maybe if you have an interesting build that you wanted to talk about, please put in the comments. And if there are any other gods that maybe you are thinking about trying different things on, let me know and we can maybe you can do a video talking about it. So I thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Bye bye.